Welcome to Insights in Sound, where we talk to the people behind the scenes, behind the technology, and behind the music. People you may not know, but you should.
Our guest is KC Mancebo. How would you describe your work is so varied.
It is.
What do you call yourself when you introduce yourself to somebody as I'm a...
Right, and it's like fill in the blank. And
yeah, I'm an entrepreneur.
I'm an entrepreneur. Right? Yeah, I usually just say I'm an entrepreneur, and then they think, doing something malicious. But no, I primarily, am in management and production, so I usually just say I'm a manager-producer.
But you have quite the background, because I know you've been into fashion. So let's just start off with a little bit of a sort of compressed timeline, okay?
Sure.
Take me down the road. Start out.
Well, I was born in Topanga. No. I started my first company at 15, and I was in corporate gifts, and McDonald's was my first client. And I like this a lot, just having the ability to make my career kind of under my own terms.
So how did that happen? How does one start a corporate job at 15?
I don't know. I think I was just deciding I wanted to do something, and my memory of this is I set up shop at a community event and did a booth to sell holiday gifts, and someone who worked for McDonald's came in and said, "Hey, this is great," and I got an order for 1,500 baskets. They were gift baskets, back when gift baskets were a thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was kind of a sign.
And I kind of went, "Oh, I like this a lot," and it was, many years later that I started, and kind of furthering my career in a direction that would ultimately lead me to where I am now. But I started an import-export business in college, and that's really, I think, what formed my career in fashion, because I'd started importing leather goods from Italy, and then people liked them, and then I got questioned of, "Hey, can you make this in a different size or a different color?" I said, "Sure, I guess I can do that," and I became a designer.
So was this something that you were led to by having a passion for it, or just by accident?
Just
because
by
it was,
accident.
Yeah.
I went to Europe on a trip, and I said, "Wow, I can't believe no one's selling this in America," and it's just a really cool product, and I started bringing it over, and it was just very serendipitous.
Wow. Okay, so during all this time, because obviously, you've now had involvement in the music industry, were you also musical at this age, or were you?
I was musical at a much younger age.
Uh-huh.
I started playing guitar at, I think I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I played guitar throughout my younger years and throughout high school. And then when I got to college and I was working a lot, et cetera, and playing sports, I kind of stopped. I put the guitar down,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of have yet to pick it up, but I have said to myself, when my kids are a little older, that's what I'm going to go back to for sure.
Okay. So what I'm trying to get at here is you start out, you're in fashion,
Mm-hmm.
and completely, as you say, serendipitously.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So your heart's not necessarily in it. You're just kind of like, wow, I found myself doing this thing. Where was your passion?
I think my passion was in it, and I didn't know it.
Okay. Uh-huh.
When I started being able to design and manufacture on my own, I went, "Oh, this is fun. I like this a lot."
Because then you had control over the process.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that was hard to actually running a company with an offshore, a company in Italy, trying to get product delivered on time and
as a
to
teenager?
the specs as a teenager was tough. And Italy works very differently than the United States in terms of what they think is quick in terms of turnaround. So I did like having the control over the process, and then I got into Vogue, the very first show I ever did, and that I remember carrying my little handbag.
There's a message from the universe.
And I was walking down Madison Avenue, carrying my little handbag in the elevator, going up to present this to Vogue for a shoot, and got into the Museum of Modern Art during that first show, and sold to Takashimaya and Bergdorf. And this is when the economy was not doing very well, and Barney's was paying 1 cent on the dollar in bankruptcy. So I got in at a very challenging time, and I think that really helped me to stay driven and focused.
Interesting. Yeah, it really sounds like kind of a message from the universe. You're doing the right thing here.
It was a little bit.
Kind of hitting it out of the park the first time at bat, almost.
Yeah, exactly. It was, and it was a great ride. It was a lot of fun.
So then, what happened?
My husband died, and I was 24, and he died unexpectedly from an illness, and I was working really hard for a long time, and I kind of said, I want to get off the train. And I need a break. And I did not know what I was going to do. And I really felt, not lost, but I just felt like I was exhausted. I was, caregiving and running a company and finishing college. And I just needed a breather.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I was living in the same place where we lived for many years, in an older building in Marina del Rey, where most of the people who lived there had been there for years, and I had lived there for many years. So they really became like a lot of big sisters, big brothers, extended family, and a lot of them were a little bit older than me. So I felt this, hen community with these friends who I'm still friends with today. Mm-hmm. And one of the ladies knocked on my door one day and said, I know you're kind of in between things, and there's this guy who just bought a house in the marina, and he needs some help with some fashion music thing, and I know that's kind of, what you like, so maybe you should go talk to him.
Fashion music?
It was like, she didn't know what it was. She just she was working for a builder.
That fashion music thingy.
Yeah,
okay.
And I said, oh, okay, well, it's in the neighborhood. I guess I'll go and see what this is. And that's what led me into my launch into the fashion/music industry, which was the launch of the Spice Girls.
You seem to be in the right place at the right time a lot.
Sometimes I'm not. That's for sure. Uh-huh. And then I worked on Christina Aguilera's career,
so
Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC. That was the late 90s.
Yeah, and that would have been 19 Management, right? Was that?
Yeah, that was 19 Management and Bravado.
Sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they were my clients.
That was quite the crew to hook up with too.
That was
they were at the top of their game.
That was tough. Yeah. It was, and then we were manufacturing in China, doing business in England, and I was here. So those were years of lots of coffee, not very much sleep.
Lots of late night phone and early morning phone calls and stuff like that, yeah.
But I was used to it from working internationally, so it didn't really intimidate me. We were just doing a ton of volume. We were doing, I think, 1,100 SKUs of Britney Spears merchandise in '99.
Now, it's interesting to me that you didn't really make a transition. You kind of added, because you already had the fashion savvy. But now all of a sudden you're plugging the fashion savvy into the music industry. Mm-hmm. That's a completely different animal.
Right.
And in terms of the clientele and in terms of the mindset and everything else, that's a little bit of an adjustment, isn't it?
It was an adjustment, but I think I was used to it, and I was used to manufacturers and different vendors of dealing with. So it was a little bit of an adjustment, but I was not intimidated by it.
I'm interested to hear now what happens next, because it seems to me that you have this, well, first of all, you have a very entrepreneurial sort of mindset, and it seems that you're also a fellow autodidact. And so I can see that what's happening here is basically stuff comes along and you go, okay, I think I could do that.
Yep.
Right? And
yes, very much so.
And all of these different skills sort of come onto each other and, sort of build onto each other. So what was the next step in the path?
Well, I worked, I was in pop for several years, and, these massive artists, and really looking at the audiences, and I was doing a lot of arguing with the record labels about over-sexualizing the girls, particularly
Wait,
Britney.
the Spice Girls? Heavens, no.
No, the younger girls, primarily Britney. And and that was really hard for me as a woman, and I was in my younger years, but I really didn't like it at all. And I got a lot of pushback, and pushback around Christina as well. And I talked to Christina's manager, and I said, look, I really think this is a bad move for her. She's not even 21 yet. And it turns out this one photograph I ended up taking of her where she was more appropriately clad, I shall say, was the highest selling photo of her for like a period of 2 or 3 years.
Nice.
So I felt, I got my way.
Vindicated.
A little bit vindicated. But when I was going through that, I kind of said, wait a minute, I want to do something a little bit more impactful and positive. And so I started working in children's music. And I started a label. And I had all of this happened also very serendipitously. But I started a label, and I started kind of more of an audiovisual company, if you will. I had all of the relationships with the retailers because of all of the merchandising that we were doing for the pop stars. And this was back when there were things called bookstores and record stores.
I remember those.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And I took advantage of that, and I had a very random thing happen, which was a very famous pediatrician in Los Angeles talked to one of his clients about this project he had, and she said, I think you should call my friend Casey. And he called me, and I ended up taking this really adorable video for kids and selling it to Target. And it was about a trash truck who is animated, and he goes to work with his dad, who's a real trash truck, and he learns about recycling. And I ended up building a whole business kind of around that. And I had a label with 25 artists. A lot of them had crossover careers.
That's so, it's not only sweet, but it's
been
a
such,
good cause and everything.
It's been such a blast.
God,
I love
that's
it.
awesome.
And then I started working a lot with other people in the industry, and I got in a couple of years after they'd started it, but I think now we're going into our 10th year of producing the Grammy Children's Concert. So it's one of the only categories where everyone actually likes to be together and isn't very competitive in during Grammy week, and there's a lot of support. And we take the 5 artists who are nominated for Best Children's Album of the Year, and we throw a concert, and we donate 100% of the proceeds to music education.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And so now that there's been more digital releases and a lot of artists can do their own placements, I kind of have tapered back on the kids' music a little bit, but I've got a civil rights album out that we produced about 2 years ago.
So it's all educational in nature. It's not just kid stuff.
A lot of it is a lot of it's really just fun, but a lot of it is educational entertainment.
Sounds like it.
Sure.
Yeah. So your conscience is in it as well, which
very
is really
much so.
nice.
Yes, very much so. I was approached a few years ago by a producer from Philadelphia named Rodney Wittenberg at a Grammy event, and he talked to me about producing this children's album, and he told me what the subject matter was and what it was, and I went, I'm in 150%, and it's been a ride like nothing else because it's touching so many people, and the project's free, and we got to interview all of the living civil rights leaders, and they were interviewed by their grandchildren and family members and heard all of these wonderful stories. So to have a project with John Lewis under my label was definitely a career highlight.
And plus you've done something to get them and their grandkids closer as well.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
That's really kind of cool. So you've had, I think what's really kind of cool is you've not only had the opportunity to really build on top of everything you've done with the next thing, but you've also had the opportunity to really do some good with everything you've been doing.
It's definitely a huge part of,
That's awesome.
of who I am. I started my first candy striping gig was when I was 14, and I just could not get into the hospital quick enough. And I read books to seniors at the motion picture home out in Calabasas.
Now,
so it's in me.
well, now here's something that I think is interesting. Clearly you're self-taught, like I said, that almost everything you've done. And most of us who are self-taught, we go through at least some kind of if it's not strictly imposter syndrome, it's, this kind of fear of somebody opening the door one day and saying, you have no idea what you're doing, right? I mean, we all go through that,
Sure.
And yet it seems like along every step of the way, you kind of got some sort of like nod from the universe, some sort of immediate sign that, hey, you're doing the right thing. So do you have those moments?
I'm pretty fearless. My mom taught me to just kind of do my own thing and jump in, and I really don't care what other people think. I've never deferred to other people's opinions of me, and I just try to work really hard. And I feel like if somebody ever pulled back the curtain, they would just see me working really hard. Mm-hmm. And so I've never really felt, that sense of imposter syndrome, except for a few times here and there. I would definitely say it's come in.
I think we all do.
Not very much at all.
Yeah, I think we all do, but that's kind of my point, is that you seem to be not necessarily immune to it, but you seem to have rolled with it pretty well.
I think it's a producer in me, too. I think, production is like you plan and adjust. And so with that attitude, I'm always doing that. And so it's kind of par for the course in terms of, producing, but it kind of goes along with your mental evaluation of what you're working on. Mm-hmm. And so if I say I'm thinking maybe I'm not making a great decision, I kind of just step back and adjust and make sure that I'm course correcting. And that helps a lot, I think. Do you do that?
I do that, and I think that is what fascinates me about that, is that there really is kind of a balance between, imposter syndrome on one side, hubris on the other side, right? And finding that balance of, not being an absolute ass about, don't have to tell me anything,
Sure.
versus, oh my God, what am I going to do next, And there's this middle ground there. And I really love the way you tread that middle ground so, almost effortlessly.
Oh, thank you.
I mean,
that's a nice compliment.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate
really,
that.
I think to me that's probably, I'm sure it's the secret to your success, but, of course, success is something we define for ourselves, right?
Right. And I've always felt like, I'm learning every day. I think that's what happens when you're an entrepreneur and you're an autodidact, is like you just keep, you keep the lid open, so you just keep filling it with knowledge, and learning every day helps to tamper some of the hubris.
Yes.
And, I try never to think of myself as, knowing everything, and that helps a lot.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I think is empowering is to know how to ask for what you want. And I think that's another thing that holds a lot of people back. Mm-hmm. There is so much out there that we don't ask for. There are so many chances that I'm speaking, in the global we,
yes.
right, but so many times we just don't ask because we either don't feel entitled, or maybe we didn't even think of it. But, a lot of times it seems like the opportunities just kind of presented themselves to you, and you were open to receiving them. Mm-hmm. What do they call it?
Yes.
The law of attraction?
Yes, law of attraction. Mm-hmm. And I definitely think there are other times where I don't have any clue and I have to go and find something for sure.
We all do.
We all do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the fun of it, is like, what is next? I don't know. Mm-hmm. We all get that.
Yeah. Well, and I know you've got some big plans now that you're working on, and again, that's new ground too. We won't give away any of that.
It's okay. It's a lot of fun. I love the opportunities, and it's very exciting when you have someone coming to you with a great idea, or you can help someone else build. I love that opportunity to get in from the ground with things and really build them. And that's what I think, that building, a fashion line, and building, helping build teams for artists and their careers. It's all about, being able to create, and that's so rewarding.
It's also about empathy.
Yes.
And that's one thing that I think is really interesting, especially when you're working with all of these artists and, you're thinking about their image. There's a certain degree of empath that you have to achieve in order to be able to put yourself in that set and say, how should this look?
I think that's so important, not only with the relationship with the artist, but the relationship with everyone on the team.
In life.
And in life.
Yeah.
And I need to do that a lot as a manager and also as a creator, producer, and kind of everything I do. And I think that's the biggest gift that you can have is understanding what someone else is going through, or understanding that you don't know what they're going through.
Yeah, but also understanding how in certain ways we're all connected.
Absolutely.
And we all are going through so many
Absolutely.
similar things. And I think that's a really beautiful thing when you can do that, because then I think you're touching a place that goes beyond business. You know,
absolutely.
and that,
Yeah.
you know, for me, that's one of the things that I've always been really, really grateful for, is that so many of my business relationships are personal relationships.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I see that with you as well, and I think that's really. Hi. Okay, you're done now. Thank you. But yes, I do really think that that's one of the most beautiful things about our industry, you know,
Yeah.
and it's one of the things that I've always loved and embraced about working in the arts, is that the quality of the relationships that you have goes so much deeper because you're involved in a creative process, you're involved in a creative mindset, and
Absolutely.
being able to connect with people on those other levels, I think it enriches the relationships.
Oh, it does so much. And there's so much trust that you build, and you really, you know, that's why I say to so many people, really have to find the right team when you're starting a career, and reevaluate your team as you're going through the process, because as artists grow and become more famous or more in demand, then sometimes there's more toxicity around them.
Yeah.
And so
More layers of keepers.
More layers of keepers. And so it's really, really important that you find people who, you know, you trust.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't understand the importance of really doing their due diligence when they're looking at who they're bringing in.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
And
It's really
perspectives
hard.
change as well. But, you know, to your point, I think we're all also reevaluating not only the relationships, but our own careers all
sure.
the time, you
Yeah,
know.
yes.
And I mean, you know, you're clearly on career number 4, 5, 6, whatever it is. So am I, you know. It's,
Right.
And again, it's like the fact that things build on what we already have as experience, you know, to me, that enriches the career that much more, because, you know, I can come to a career with all of the previous experience that I have.
Oh,
you know,
so true.
And again, it comes down to the whole empath thing.
Absolutely.
You know?
And you're bringing different things from different parts of your life.
Yes.
And so
yes.
something here that, and you're over here now, you don't even know that that's going to weave its way through to, you know, whatever your need is today.
And the unlikely things, you know.
Oh, so much.
The whole idea
Yeah.
of when you're working with people, there's a psychology aspect and everything else, you know. That's stuff that you just can't learn except through doing.
Right. Yeah, on the job training.
Yeah.
For sure.
So what would 15-year-old you think? Did 15-year-old you expect to be doing what you're doing now? Probably not.
Oh, no, I was so sure that I was not going into entertainment.
Uh-huh.
Because that's where my parents were, and that was the world that I grew up in, and I wanted, you know, 1,000 miles away from it. I think my younger self probably knew that I was going to be self-employed hopefully my whole life. But
I just knew that I couldn't hold a normal job.
I knew that. I couldn't
Like,
go to
okay,
an
I'm
office.
unemployable.
No.
Forget that. You know.
No, that's good.
Yep.
But also, you know, I really wanted to do something very philanthropic. So my intention as a 15-year-old was to go to law school and study gerontological law and help older people protect themselves in healthcare.
Wow. Okay, you kind of veered a little bit.
I know, sorry. Had to throw that in so you know.
Well, but, you know, I've always thought that's kind of funny because, you know, when we're younger, we think, that's what I'm going to do. And we have this goal,
Right.
and almost to the point of not even seeing everything else along the way, you know?
Sure.
And then, you know, that
Life
famous
happens.
old saying, you know, while you're busy making other plans,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
You know, and clearly, I mean, things have just led you.
What did you want to do when you were 15? What did you think?
I
you were
wanted to be
gonna
a rock star. to be honest, of course, I
yeah.
wanted to be a rock star,
Should've
and
known.
I had enough experience touring with bands by the time I was like 19, 20 years old to realize that, well, this isn't quite what I.
You don't like the band?
The demo was a whole lot better than right.
Right.
And then when I was in bands, I wanted to. I like everybody. I went into the studio and I was like, ooh, twinkly, and that's what I wanted to
Bright,
do.
shiny objects.
And so I got a gig as an assistant engineer and then as an engineer and then started producing bands, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to be a famous producer. And then I got signed to a label and started producing bands and realized, oh shit, this isn't quite what I thought it was going to be either. Because there's a lot of
figuring it out.
There's a lot of responsibility, and there's a lot of, it just, I really loved it while I was doing it, but I also saw other things in my future as well, and I just kept kind of evolving, and I'm still evolving.
And you could still be a rock star,
A rock star is all in your head.
It's all in your head.
And that to me is the thing that I think is fascinating, and I think you kind of epitomizes the idea that success is not measured in dollars. It's not measured in, prestige and toys and all that stuff. It's all in here.
It is. It's so in your head. And, I think one of the other points I want to make about success is like the comparison idea is just such an antiquated model that we need to get rid of. And I think that was a gift I got from my mom, again, is that there's nothing that you need to compare yourself to. You just have to do what's good for you and work hard. And everyone's lives are different, so there's really no need to do that.
Well, and, if you want to compare, what's that old saying about the only thing you should be comparing to is yourself yesterday?
Right. And I think that's something really, really valuable.
But it's very difficult. It's very difficult, especially when we're younger and less secure in who we are. It's really difficult to be.
It's very challenging.
Yeah.
And I think, hopefully, as people are becoming more self-aware and there's more of an openness about, people going to therapy and mental health and et cetera, that people will start self-evaluating at a younger age and not fall into that trap.
Well, it seems like
for the
they
next
are.
generation.
Yeah. There's more information at the fingertips of younger people now than there was certainly when we were coming up,
Yeah.
At the same time, there's a certain part of the brain that can't really develop. And I'm not just talking physiology, which is also true, but there's a certain amount of experience that we have to have in order to finally start making some of those decisions.
Absolutely.
You were clearly pretty precocious, At the same time, you got a lot of positive reinforcement from just the way things happened. And
I did, but I also had a lot of challenges, and
I bet.
And I think that you get what you get, you give, and it's just 2 steps forward, 1 step back, all the way up throughout the whole thing, always. And so, it's what you do with the challenges, right? And how you take that, because we all have them. Everyone fails, if you want to say failure, right? But everyone has the challenges, and if you can utilize those as opportunities to move forward and do something positive.
Well, that's a challenge in itself.
That's it is
the whole idea of it's not what happens to you, but it's how you perceive it, the stories you build around it.
That you tell yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So, it sounds like you had a good, healthy relationship with your mom too. That probably helped a lot.
Yes, so solid, like amazing. And I think seeing her as a career woman and a great mother, and going through all of her trials and tribulations was so incredibly helpful to have the confidence to just kind of do whatever I wanted.
So now, are you mentoring young people as well?
I try as much as I can. I love it. I mentored a young girl recently who came from Israel, and with one of those stories, $200 in her pocket. And I got placed with her, and we had coffee. And I just thought she's so fascinating and adorable and courageous to just come here. And I said, really, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to work in jazz. I was like, I love you. Where did you come from? And 2 weeks later, I had her placed with a huge, incredible jazz musician as his
wonderful.
personal assistant. And that was just so rewarding. And she calls me and talks to me about his career. And, now that he's not touring, it's a little dormant, but she'll go back and work with him when tours start up again. And that's just such a great thing to be able to give that gift. Because I had my mom, I think, as my biggest mentor, but she wasn't more of a mentor to me in a macro way and not in kind of a day-to-day way.
Sure.
And being in my business and all the things I've gone through, I always said, and I told my mom this too many times, I don't want anyone else to have to reinvent the wheel if I've already know how to, drive the car. So I want to help as many people as I can. And I just love it, whether it's an artist or a business person or a manufacturer, whoever it is, and a new product that's coming on the line.
Yeah.
It's my fault too. I just
well, and we're all kind of like that, but at the same time,
so.
that's part of the empathy thing,
Yes.
And
yes.
I love the idea that you pay it forward.
Yeah, it's the best.
And I think that's wonderful.
It's the best. That's my currency.
That's cool.
For sure.
KC Mancebo, thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Such a pleasure to see you.
Likewise.
Well, I started using my initials for my first name because everyone would misspell my name. And I was just like, I can't have this my whole life.
So wait, what's
me crazy.
What's your first name?
Kimball.
Kimball.
Like Richard Kimball. That's
Kimball.
No.
No?
See?
Kimble?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
But I started playing softball, then it was Casey at the bat, and then I just said Casey at the bat.
Yeah. Well, Casey suits you.
And I like it professionally because no one knows if I'm a man or a woman in
Yeah,
an
there's
email.
that too. Yeah. Hey, I'm Daniel Keller. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join us each week for Insights in Sound.